This is Nicholas Magner, observing myself as a critical reader in ENG 201. First up is reader response theory. Reader response theory is the practice of establishing a relationship between the reader and the text by keeping track of your thoughts and questions. The first time I did this with the sympathizer assignment, and what I did was I realized I wrote down my thoughts and questions too frequently to the point where I didn't understand the text, and that my grade obviously reflected that, and I realized that there's parts of the plot where I totally overlooked it due to the fact that I was trying to pull out stuff from underneath the text, but I didn't fully read the surface level of the text first. And That's something I really try again at and improve on when the kite runner came around, because what I tried, my approach was different, where I read the full section of chapters before I started my reader response, and what that did was I let the information process in my head, and then when I went to apply to the reader response document, I was able to write down more thoughtful interpretations and analysis of characters, plot, and theme. So over the course of the year, I gained a better understanding of the book, and with my notes and annotations that came along, they weren't immediately to the document; they're in my book first. I improved on the reader response practice, and I strengthened that relationship between the reader and the text. Critical analysis theory was a similar approach, where I lived and I learned from my mistakes. So critical analysis theory is a detailed evaluation of all the literary elements a part of a text. For example, of course, like imagery, symbols, conflict, all those things. And what happened was I didn't have a great understanding of what was expected of me. I didn't apply quotes to my first reader response through the things they carried, and what that did was it weakened my evaluation and interpretation of the things they carried. And again, my grade did reflect the poor quality of work. So then when it came time to try it again for my just being a discussion leader, I really applied myself in defining those quotes, and reading those quotes and making sure they back up my claim and my thoughts. So that way my interpretation or my analysis is has more like backing to it, and has more research towards it and evidence to my claims, which I definitely think strengthened my entire analysis of the section of the kite runner that I annotated. Next up is reading strategies. I use a lot of reading strategies, such as reading slow, rereading, marginal annotations, and then asking those questions and tagging those key literary terms. And with that, I was able to go back into the text, whether it be up here we have the things we carried or the kite runner. So then when it was time to put that into a document or some sort of note sheet for class, it was really easily accessible, and I retained more information about what I thought about the text. And another thing is, like, I am dyslexic, so reading slow and taking the time to read twice, it does take a long time, but it's very beneficial in the end, where I understand the surface level of the text and the genuine storyline. Like, I can comprehend the surface level stuff, because if I can't comprehend the surface level stuff, there's no way I'll be able to take a deep dive and understand the underlying stuff. So I found that very beneficial in my learning throughout the semester. Here's some more artifacts and examples of my reading strategies. On the left, you have like all my initial thoughts of questions about the kite runner. It's the first chapter is very open ended, so I'm kind of making predictions about why, how he may have in San Francisco, or what did he leave in, or like what happened to make him who he is today. And of course, in the second chapter, I pointed like a simile, I could have explained more how what that simile really means, but besides a comparison, but it's really to deepen the author's like message and text of the book. And then on the left side, I mean the right side, we have the symbolism of eyes, and then the questions I have. And like the question, for example, for calling cards, I looked up what calling cards were and found that they were a tool used for messaging someone when you're at their house and they weren't there and you wanted to get in contact with them. Um, and those that's something that's definitely not used today due to like cell phones and texting and the revolutionary form of communication we have now. But through my annotations, I was motivated to do outside research and understand the entirety of the text and like find out those little things like calling cards so I can understand what they're talking about, understand like the setting and plot of the book. For digital tools, I enjoyed all three digital tools. For Microsoft Teams, I really liked how easy it was, especially for a freshman like me. I've used these meeting platforms in the past, and it was a great way to connect with the class or my classmates in my group because we didn't have to figure out when everyone's free. It was really quick and easy. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the communication today it's super easy. Is everyone free this time? All right, does this work? Yep. Everyone click this link, and we're all on. And it's a great way to get all our ducks in a row before a big presentation, um, and to make sure everyone's on the same page. Um, and yeah, it was really low stress because we already did the work. We just had to make sure everyone else we're all set on and everything on the little things. And yeah, and this timeline was super fun and unique. I liked how it was all ethical research and from databases from like the Library of Congress or like Encyclopedia Britannica, all these like big data sources. Um, and Yeah, it was super cool. I've never used a timeline in class before. It was a great way to like, look and observe. Um, and yeah, and then for Google Docs, that's probably the one I use the most. It was a great way to keep track of my thoughts for the discussions. I liked it better than uh, paper notes because I could I could just be read, look up, type. I wouldn't have to get the pencil out and jot down the thoughts. I don't have great handwriting, so rereading that later on might confuse me. The formatting was super easy, and it definitely helped me out. I could fit more content on one piece of paper as well, so it was very much more efficient. In my my notes and in my presentation in class. Um, for connections inside and outside of class, I these reading strategies I aim to use for the rest of my life, or for the I would definitely use them for the rest of my academic and professional career. Because it saves me a lot of time. I don't have to read something, realize I didn't really comprehend it, and then read it a second time, and then do this, realize I didn't comprehend it a second time. I get out of that whole cycle. So that will definitely help me in my other classes later on. And then I realized the similarities between this literature class and the literature class I took my senior year of high school. Where those subjects such as like motifs and juxtaposition, who that aren't talked about in um like day to day life. Those are I already have prior knowledge of that, so I went back and I like retrieved those skills from that class, and then I applied them to this class, and I believe that kind of gave me a step up, and it really helped to my led to my success in this class. And then lastly is my other class, Intro to Media Culture. We talk about subjects such as terrorism, immigration, refugees, and war in Afghanistan. Um, I use like both these classes to enhance my knowledge of the other. I learned about maybe like one side of like the more recent conflict with Afghanistan. And from with the kite runner, I was able to like understand and learn about the origins of why the conflict is happening, why the Taliban and how the Taliban got in power. So things like that. So I applied both my knowledges to both classes, and it helped me become a better critical thinker, which helped me make these connections as a whole. And I really gave me like a little edge, especially for someone like me who needs that little edge when it comes to comprehending a text. Uh, where I could use my outside resources to understand the book. So I found that very beneficial to me as well, as a learner and as a reader, this semester. One challenge I faced this year was establishing a reading schedule. Uh, I the first couple weeks I was all over it. I was all over my schedule, but as other classes ramped up, I kind of had to pick priorities, and I always told myself I'd read. I can read fast. I can read tomorrow. It's not that bad, but then sometimes, um, tomorrow would come and I'm not really ready to read, and then I'm like kind of behind the eight ball now, and then I'd be like, how am I gonna get this done? But luckily every week I came prepared, and I finished the reading every week. But I needed some help, and I had to adapt to these challenges, and I used like the audio version of the text as my help. And what I could do there was I could read and listen at the same time at like a fast rate, where I could faster than I could read, so then I could retain the information while also keep track of the what I'm like listening to. I have the page open for like the page numbers of the quotes, and then I would have to lose my place by looking up and writing stuff down. So it's super beneficial for someone like me, where if I did look up and write something down, I would probably lose my place. So yeah, I think the adaptation to those challenges attribute to my effort in the class, and how no matter what, I'm gonna get the work done, and I did get the work done every single week, so I'm very proud of that. For my most memorable experience, is gonna have to be my special event. I went to the Frazzati canonization event outside Frazzati Hall. It was super early on in the semester. It was a really cool experience. I learned a lot about Pier Giorgio Frassati and his life. Um, and like I learned about like what he did in his life to make him a saint, why people appreciate him so much, why people decided to pray on his name, in order for him to accomplish those miracles and for him to be canonized. I found out how he was the patron saint of sports and athletes, and I'm a big sports fan, and I like being an athlete. I was an athlete in high school. Um, I tried to play club here at college, and yeah, it was a great ceremony, which good food, good spirits. Both fathers were there, all around great experience, and I'm very glad I went. Didn't feel like I was there for a class requirement. I just feel like I was generally meant to be there, which I thought was really cool. Last is my aha moment. My aha moment was my one-on-one with Professor Hume right around midterms. Prior to the meeting, there's a few assignments I didn't do great on. I was very unhappy with my grade. But when we sat down, we talked. I found out the reasons for those grades, and how I can accomplish better grades in the future. So I used that as my motivation and what I learned to apply myself this second half of the semester. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like a live you learn process. I've definitely learned a lot this semester, and I think that learning and kind of almost like failing attributes to my success in the second half. And I think this is a perfect testament right here on the screen, where my original critical analysis I get a 12 out of 20. That's a 60%. And my second one I get a 18 out of 20, which is a 90%, which is a 30% jump within like a couple weeks. So I'm really impressed by the improvements I made on like things I originally thought were really hard and tricky in the beginning of the semester. Now I've become like I can just breeze through them because I know I have the skills to accomplish that. Here's my works cited, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.